Create Mod has so many add-ons at this point that it can be overwhelming to try and figure out which ones are right for you. In this video, I'll be showing you 10 add-ons that I think can help enhance your Create Mod experience. Some of the mods that I'll be looking at are quite popular, while others are a bit more obscure. To everyone watching this video, I think that I'll be able to introduce you to at least one new mod or feature that you'll find interesting. So let's have a look at our first mod. This is Crafts and Additions. It's a mod that focuses on electricity but also adds a whole bunch of quality of life features. So here what we're doing is we're converting rotation into electricity, or more accurately forge energy, which is a system that's used by many other mods, not just those that are based on Create. We can then take this electricity and put it into an electric motor to convert it into rotation, but there's some efficiency losses, so you'll lose efficiency, but you'll gain the ability to more easily transmit that rotation through these wires. And of course, there's several kinds of wires, and they can be quite long. We also have these Christmas lights, and we also have these light bulbs. So the mod also gives us some redstone that we can use to let the electricity go through or stop it. So this light bulb will turn off when there's no signal given, and if I give a signal, the light bulb will turn on and the motor will start. So the mod also gives us two new cakes, a honey cake and a chocolate cake, as well as some barbed wire. So if I put a mob in it and it moves through it, it will take damage. The mod also gives us a new tier of sandpaper, the pale gold amulet, which gives the wearer a lot of protection, and we also get the rolling mill, which helps us produce the items we need to craft the blocks given to us by this mod. So if we put ingots through the rolling mill, we'll get these rods. And if we put sheets of metal through the rolling mill, we'll get wire. But the coolest thing we can do is put bamboo through the rolling mill to get straws. So why are straws so interesting? Well, we'll see in just a bit. But first, we're gonna have a look at the accumulator. So what this does is it just stores energy so you can save it for later. For example, if you're producing a lot of energy and then you want to use a whole lot later, you can do that with the accumulator. So a full-size accumulator can store 90 million forge energy, which is a lot. So the mod also gives us the Tesla coil, which can be used to charge items that are provided by other mods. So this doesn't actually charge any of the items in this mod, it's just here for compatibility with other mods. But it does have another feature which I'll demonstrate. So if you place a mob within 3 blocks and we activate a redstone signal, it will electrocute the mob as well as the player, and it'll also give us this animation right here, and I can't actually move. I have to jump or fly away. So now back to the straw. Why is a straw so interesting? Well, we see here we have a blaze burner with a straw, and we're directly piping lava into it. So no more buckets, no more robotic arms or deployers. You can just pipe it directly into it. I don't know why this isn't a feature in the base Create mod. It just seems like something so logical that you'd want to have it. So this for me is a big quality of life update provided by this mod. So if you're interested in learning more about Create, Crafts, and Additions, and you'd like to see a more in-depth tutorial, I do have a video on that, which I'll be linking in the description. So what if you're interested in piping liquid fuel directly to your blaze burners, but you don't want to bother with the rest of this mod? Well, luckily there's another mod for you that's called Create Liquid Fuel. So this does not add any new blocks. Instead, it allows us to pipe the liquid fuel directly into the blaze burner. So if you see here, this is just a regular blaze burner. There is no straw. You can just pipe the lava directly into it. This is a very small mod that does one thing. It's a focused mod, and it's great for people that only want that one feature. Our next mod is Create Structures, and what it does is it adds windmills to villages. So these are just simple windmills. They don't add any new villagers, but they add a bit of character to your villages while keeping the vanilla look. So they don't look out of place at all, and they provide you with a few early game Create Mod items. So this is just a neat little mod that adds some decoration to your villages without being overpowered at all. If you like mods that add structures, then you might be interested in this one, which is Young's Better Nether Fortresses. It's not exactly an add-on for Create, so I won't count it towards the 10 mods in this video. But what it does do is it comes with compatibilities with Create Mod. So what that means is if you run this mod and Create Mod at the same time, it'll include some Create Mod blocks in the Nether Fortresses. So for example, it adds this gate that we can raise using this hand crank. And we also have these massive doors that we can open by turning this hand crank. So this is how it looks from the outside, and if we go in here, we can also close it by turning the hand crank the same way. And what's really clever about this is any way we turn it, we're never gonna mess up the doors by turning them into the structure. If you've ever wanted to fly around in survival mode, luckily there's a mod for that. It's called Create Jetpack. And what it does is it adds 2 jetpacks, a copper one and a netherite one. So just like the back tanks from Vanilla Create Mod, the jetpacks can be charged by applying a rotation to them. And what's cool is they have all the features of the back tanks. So if you wear a helmet or if you use the potato cannon, well, you can use the air in the jetpack for that. So here I am in survival mode. I can press H to enable hover, which basically makes me fall down much slower. I can press shift to go down. I find the Jetpack is great for exploring the Nether, and it puts you on even ground when fighting blazes by allowing you to fly as well. And since the jetpack is a source of air, if you're wearing a netherite diving helmet, you can go under the lava and breathe under there no problem. Next, we have a mod that's all about quality of life features. This is Create Connected. So this first block that we're going to look at is the crank wheel. So this is pretty typical of Create Connected, where it takes something that exists and slightly modifies it, either by combining it with something else or just making it that much more convenient. And it's exactly what it looks like. It's a cogwheel and a crank. And there's also a large crank wheel variant. And next is the inverted clutch, which does exactly as the name suggests. So if we give it no signal, it does not let any rotation through. But if we flick this lever to give it a signal, it will allow the rotation to pass through. So what this does is it allows you to have the features of a clutch without having to invert your signals. And next we have the same thing but with a gear shift. So what this does is if it receives no redstone signal, it will invert the direction of rotation, and if we apply a signal, it'll allow the rotation to go through without modifying the direction. So a standard gearbox in Create will have the cogs rotating in a different direction when you look at them. So this one is going clockwise, but this one is going counterclockwise. So what Create Connected does is it adds the parallel gearbox. And if I look at the cogs now, they'll all turn clockwise when I look at them. And of course, the parallel gearbox also comes with the vertical variant. And next we have the 6-way gearbox, which, as the name suggests, has 6 outputs. There's just one thing to be mindful of, is that 2 of the outputs will spin at half of the input speed. And this is because of how the imagined internal gearing works. And of course, there's also a vertical variant. There's also a brass gearbox, which allows us to change the direction of rotation of each of the outputs individually by right-clicking on the sides. The mod also adds the shear pin, which breaks when the network becomes overstressed, thus saving the more critical parts of your mechanical network. So in Create Mod, we have item vaults, which are a great way to store items. However, they can only be stacked horizontally. So what Create Connected does is it gives us the items tile, which does the exact same thing as the item vault, except it's allowed to be stacked vertically. And of course, we also have the same thing for the fluid tank with the fluid vessel. And what I really love about this is this big window. So you can just place one, and when you right click on it, you can cycle through all the window options. I just like to leave it on this big window here. And we have the same concept for the created fluid tanks with the creative fluid vessels. So in Create Mod, we can bulk process items by placing an encased fan over things like a campfire, soul campfire, water, and lava. However, these can spill out and they can be kind of hazardous. So what Create Connected does is it gives us the empty fan catalyst, which we can then place a fire, soul fire, water, or lava in to process our products. And they also give us the fan freezing catalyst, which is for compatibility with other mods that add bulk freezing. We also get a new redstone component with the sequenced pulse generator, which is basically a sequenced gear shift, but for redstone signals. So we have the choice of a few instructions and durations as well as signal strength. So for example, here we can set the output to go to 15 for 10 ticks, and then to 10, and then to 3. So if I press this button, we'll see the Nixie tubes go 15, 10, and 3. Next we have the linked lever, which is basically a lever combined with a redstone link in transmit mode. So it works the exact same way. You place blocks to set up the frequency, and you can send it to a receiver. So if I flick this lever right here, we'll see this redstone lamp turn on because I'm transmitting the signal wirelessly to it. The mod also adds bamboo and cherrywood windows to complement the existing windows added by Create Mod. And one cool thing about this mod is that we get copycat panels. So we had the base copycat panels from Create, but this one also adds blocks, slabs, and a whole bunch of other things. So if you're looking at the top of my screen right now, you're going to see that it says Copycats Plus. So why does it say Copycats Plus if I'm showing you Create Connected? Well, that's because Create Connected has compatibility with Copycats Plus. So if I have both mods installed and I place a copycat block from Create Connected, it'll automatically convert to a copycat block from Copycats Plus. The mod also adds 2 new music discs, as well as quite a few other blocks that interact with rotation and improve quality of life. If you'd like to learn more about Create Connected, I do have a video where I cover its features in greater detail, which I'll link in the description. We're only halfway through this video, and there's still a lot more to see. So if you've watched it this far and you still find it interesting, then you might want to consider subscribing and activating notifications so that you can see more content like this in the future. This next mod is a big one. This is Create the Factory Must Grow. So this mod just adds so many things. It adds oil, it adds engines, it adds new metals and ways to smelt them, and on top of that, it also adds electricity and flamethrowers. So not only do we get some cool new decorative blocks that we can make out of the new metals, we also get some things like fluid tanks and a bunch of pipes. So steel is the only block that we can make these new fluid tanks out of. However, we can make pipes with a variety of new materials. So here we can see two of the new liquids that this mod gives us, molten steel and gasoline in these tanks. We're also given aluminum that we can make decorative blocks and pipes out of, cast iron, plastic, and brass. And we also get a few new decorative blocks like the factory floor and caution blocks that come in a variety of colors. So to get oil, the mod gives us the pump jack. So once we've pumped up our oil and sent it to a fluid tank, what we can then do is send it to a steel distillation controller, and we can directly connect that to a steel distillation output. And what this will do is it'll separate the oil into its individual components all the way up the distillation column. So once we've distilled our fuels, there's a whole bunch of engines we can make. So there's the large radial engine, which uses kerosene, the standard radial engine, which uses gasoline. We also have diesel engines, turbine engines, which burn kerosene, liquefied petroleum gas engines, as well as a good old gasoline engine. So some of these engines will come in two parts. There might be a back part and a front part. And something important to keep in mind is that you need to extract the CO2 from the engine. So what you have to do is you just place a mechanical pump along with this exhaust block. So this will extract the CO2 from the engine, and if you don't do this, the engine will smother itself. As for the new materials added by the mod, aluminum can be extracted from bauxite, steel can be obtained by combining multiple items in a blast furnace, and plastic is obtained by further processing the products of distillation. On the electricity side of things, the mod allows us to produce power by spinning a rotor within a stator, and then to transmit that we can use cable connectors and cables as well as these cable blocks. We also have some electrical motors that can generate rotation, and they can have their speed selected much like a creative motor. If you want something on a smaller scale, you can build a generator, though you don't have as much efficiency at converting rotation into electricity. The electricity, of course, is represented as forge energy, which is a resource that's used by many other mods. We can also build transformers by placing copper coils next to each other, and we can verify the voltage in it using voltmeters. We're also given a variety of cable hubs to help dispense the energy in various directions. There's also the capacitor and the accumulator to store electricity for later use. And conveniently, the mod is also compatible with other Create Mod add-ons that add electricity, like Create Craftsman Editions and Create New Age. And there's also flamethrowers that can use a variety of liquids as ammunition. If you'd like to learn more about the Factory Must Grow, I have two videos where I explain the mod in greater detail, which I'll link in the description. Minecraft gives us portals which allow us to teleport to different dimensions, but what if you had more control over where you could teleport to? Well, luckily Create Teleport gives us more options on where we can teleport. So this mod gives us some base teleporters. We have the entity teleporter and the item teleporter. So all teleporters in this mod require something called telejuice, which can only be produced using chorus fruit. So these teleporters are a feature for the endgame after you've beaten the Ender Dragon. So let's look at the entity teleporter first. So how you control this is you have to take a TP link and you have to right click the entity teleport receiver. So once I've done that, I set the destination, and then all I have to do is place the TP link into the teleporter like this. And now any entity that goes on this teleporter will instantly be teleported to the destination. And of course, it even works with the player. So for teleporting items, it works pretty similarly. You place the TP link within the teleporter, and then you place the item in the second slot. So when you give it a redstone signal, it'll instantly teleport the item to the destination. And there we go. So as for the custom portals, they also require the telejuice, but in addition you also need the gravity stabilizer, which also needs telejuice. So to activate this portal, all you have to do is right click the gravity stabilizer and make sure that both have telejuice in them. Then we'll get this animation and the teleporter will be ready to use. So one difference with the custom portals is that you need to make an advanced TP link, which just has a more complex recipe. So if I take the link, I can right click literally anywhere that I want in any dimension. So I can click right here, and once I put this in the teleporter, I can go through the portal and I'll appear exactly in that position. So we can even teleport across dimensions. So I'm gonna right click here and I'm gonna go put this back in the teleporter. And now when I go through the teleporter, I'll appear in the exact location in the Nether that I've selected. And this also works for the end. The mod also adds pocket dimensions, which are tiny 15 by 15 by 15 cubes in another dimension. So to go there, you need the pocket dimension remote. So in front of me, I have 2 pieces of wool, one red and one blue. I also have 2 pocket dimension remotes. So with the first remote, I'm gonna right click on this piece of wool and it says bound. So when I right click, I'm gonna go to the dimension that is bound to that piece of wool. So how it works is you bind the remote to a block, and that's kind of like the pointer to your dimension. So I've placed a piece of red wool here to identify this dimension, and I'll go ahead and place some glowstone around the edges so we have a better idea of how big this place is. So you can see it's not big at all. And if I fly up here, well, we'll see that's where the roof is. So now to leave, all I have to do is right click with this remote. Okay, and if I right click again, we'll go back to the same pocket dimension. And again, I'll right click and leave. So now if I take the second remote and right click this blue piece of wool, I'll bind it to a different dimension. So let's go there, and what we'll do is we'll place a piece of blue wool above the glowstone just to keep track of which dimension is which. So now I'll right click and we'll come out here. If I right click again, we'll go to the blue one, right click, leave, and I can also go back to the red pocket dimension. So that's a primer on how the pocket dimensions work. So there you have it, that was Create Teleporters. Next, we have a mod that adds some color to your Create Mod world. This is Create Vibrant Vaults. The mod adds functionally identical variants of the item vault, and each is available in 17 different colors. In addition to the regular item vault, we also have the vertical item vault, the shipping container, the vertical shipping container, the basic shipping container, and the vertical basic shipping container. And what's cool is we can right click them with a wrench and it'll change into the other type. So if I have this vertical item vault here, well, I can just right click and it'll become a regular item vault. And I can do the same thing with shipping containers and basic shipping containers. So while Vibrant Vaults might be a small mod, it's a great way to add a splash of color to any of your Create Mod builds. If you've ever wanted to add power armor to the game, then this next mod might be the one for you. This is Create Protection Pixel. The mod adds some powerful pieces of armor in both brass and netherite variety. The mod adds some cool accessories as well, such as the maneuvering wing, which lets you fly, and the pneumatic grenade launch arm, which allows you to launch pneumatic grenades. So these pieces of armor are very heavy, and you'll need to power them with a combustion reactor, which you feed with flare rods and water from the disposable water tanks. You can also add a variety of armor plates to increase the defense that the armor gives you. To do that, you'll have to stand on the armor load platform. So to set up your combustion reactor, just right click while holding it like this, and place the disposable water tank here. You can then add these flare rods here to heat up the system. So you'll notice here that it says min 918. That means this current setup will last me 918 minutes. And I can add more flare rods here to increase that number. So if you look above my hearts, you'll see that I don't have all that much armor, despite being fully encased in power armor. So to increase the armor, I'm going to have to add some armor plates. So right now I'm standing on the armor load platform, which by the way needs to be fed with lava. It says press key to active, so I'm going to press the right shift to activate the platform, and you'll see this interface will pop up. So starting with my helmet, I'm going to click on disassemble, and I'm going to bring some brass armor plates right here. I'm going to click on connection, which is actually going to build it together, and you see I've increased my armor. So I can do this with all the armor pieces, so I'll add some here, but I'm also adding weight. So I'll press on connection, and now I have the full amount of armor. So now if we go into our inventory and we press shift on our armor, we'll see that the helmet adds +4 weight and the chest plate adds +10 weight. And if we look at our combustion reactor, it says that the maximum full state counterweight is 11. So that means that we're over the amount of weight. So what's going to happen is that we're going to be slowed down a bit when we walk. So to fix that, we're just going to add some more flare rods to it. And now we can see that it can support up to 16 weight and I won't be slowed down anymore. So to use the grenade launcher, make sure you have grenades in your inventory, and when you're ready to use them, just crouch and press spacebar. And finally, from the creator of Destroy, we have our last mod. This is Petrol's Parts. So this mod adds a few ways for us to interact with rotation. So first of all, the mod adds 2 coaxial cogwheels, a small and large variant. So these are just regular cogwheels, except they have a hole in the middle, and that hole allows us to pass a shaft through it without being affected by the cogwheel itself. So you can have more compact builds thanks to this coaxial cogwheel. The next cool thing that this mod adds is the double cardan shaft, which simply allows you to have a 90-degree joint without having any extra shafts stick out. So you don't have to use something like a gearbox to transfer your rotation by 90 degrees. So yes, you could do this with 2 large cogwheels, but this is a smaller, more elegant solution. So next, the mod gives us the planetary gear set. So what this does is it takes this input from the side and it cuts it in half on the edge of the cogwheel right here. So you can see we're putting in 16 and we're getting out 8 RPM. And then we have the differential. So what this does is it takes an input from one side and then subtracts the input from the other side and then gives us half of that. So 8 minus 4 divided by 2 gives us 2 RPM. So if I were to stop this side completely, we would have 8 and 0. So half of the difference would be 4. So there you go. This is the differential gear. You can only add inputs through the side. If you try to add an input through this outer part, it will break. So each of the previous components were taken from Destroy. This, however, is the final component. This is the Colossal Cogwheel. So the Colossal Cogwheel is exactly the same size as a large water wheel. And you can see here that we can put cogwheels in the interior. Well, what's cool is we can also put both small and large cogwheels along the interior, and we can transfer rotation that way. So here are a few possible configurations that we can use. The small cogwheels can only go where the 4 corners would be, whereas the large ones can go on the side. And then we can fit the small ones inside just like this. If you'd like to learn more about Petrol's parts, I do have a video where I covered it in greater detail, which I'll link in the description. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you'd like to learn more about add-ons for Create, then you might be interested in watching this video here. Thank you for watching.